won't take a peso. You take $1 because you know you can take the dollar and give it to someone else and they'll give you something for it, right? You know you can take the euro and you'll get something for it. The only thing you can actually legally do with $1 is pay taxes to the United States government. That's the only guaranteed thing. There's no piece of gold you can get if you hand over the dollar. That ended a long time ago. So the money is valuable because people believe in the money, and so some cryptographers got together and said, what if we could create a money that was just based on mathematics, not based on paper or banks or anything else, just based on mathematics, and we could get people to believe the same thing about it. We could get people to believe, I will take this because I know I can spend it over there. Right? So it will be valuable because of that. And people said, you are crazy. I think you have the word local, right? And for several years they were local, right? Because it didn't happen. It was not worth anything. But about a year ago or so, more than a year ago, people started actually accepting the money for something else. So let's talk about how this money works. So in Bitcoins, the Bitcoins, which are these things that people are all agreeing are valuable, they're just very big, long numbers. And they meet a certain magical mathematical test. If you do this computation on them, the test says, yes, this is a Bitcoin. Now, that complex calculation takes a little bit of time to do, and only very, very few numbers pass the test. Only a very, very few numbers. So it's very hard to find them. To find them, you have to have a computer grind away for hours and hours and hours looking through numbers one at a time to try and find a number that meets this test. It's not at all easy. And so what they said was, we'll create two things, the system of numbers, and also a mathematical magic scroll. And the magic scroll is such that anyone can write on it and add something to it, but no one can change the past. No one can change what was written on it before. So I can write things, and then you can add things, people can keep adding to it, but nobody can erase what's there in the past. So if someone finds one of these magic numbers, they're the first to find it, and they can go to the scroll and they can write down an I, and you can make up a name. That's the interesting part of this. I found the following magic number. And everyone can immediately look at that and say, oh yes, that number does meet the test. And they can look at the scroll and they can say, nobody else found that number before you, because they can't go back into the past and pretend that they found it later. So you're the first to find it. You can write on the scroll, and everyone in the world shares this scroll, and they will agree you found it, it's yours. They call this mining. They call it mining because it's a little bit like going out into the desert and finding a nugget of gold in the ground, and now it's yours. And you can go in. It's a physical thing. The number is not a physical thing, but you're the first one to find it. So this mining takes place by people having their computers run all day. They actually spend a lot of electricity. Running a computer costs a lot of electricity. And so they spend this electricity to mine these coins. Then once you have the coin, there's another thing you can write on this magic scroll. It's kind of a ledger. You can write that I, the person who found the following coin, I would now like to give it to Santiago. Or whatever name you want to put in there. Again, just a magic, you can put any name there. It's the name, it's the digital signature name I told you about before, of the other person. And everyone can see that you wrote this check, that you said, I give my coin to him, or I give 1,000th of my coin to him. Now that's public. It's public that you did that you transferred the coin. Everyone sees that you've transferred it, everyone knows you no longer own it, and everyone knows that Santiago owns it. Except Santiago's a made-up name and your name is made up. So they know the money flowed, but they don't know from who or to who. Those are anonymous. And all of this takes place inside a shared network of computers, millions of computers. So it takes place without any government involved. It takes place without any ability of anyone else to control it, unless they could take over almost all the mining of coins, which would be very difficult. So now you have a system which you can use as money. And it's like having a dollar bill with a teleporter on it. Because it's a dollar bill that you can just say, zap. Now this dollar bill belongs to someone else. And it's anonymous in two directions. When I have cash, I can go into a store and I can buy something with cash and they don't know who I am. But I know who the store is, usually. I went down Florida Street, I don't know who the guy is who gave me pesos for my dollars, but... By the way, don't go to the ATMs to get pesos for your dollars, it's very bad idea. But by and large, you know who you're giving the money to, and they may not know who you are. So it's anonymous one way, cash is typically. This is anonymous both ways. So, it's no surprise that some of the first people who were interested in a money that was anonymous like this were people maybe not entirely obeying the law. And this included a site that was run in, it turns out in the United States, no one knew where originally, called the Silk Road. And the Silk Road, named after the famous path to China, was kind of like the Amazon.com of drugs. And you could buy marijuana and cocaine, and you could even buy other illegal activities there. And nobody knew who was transacting. You could pay for it with bitcoins. So that was shut down by the US FBI about a month ago. When they found the guy who was running it, they tracked him through some other methods, or they say they tracked him through some other methods. And they shut it down. But here's what was really interesting about that. The bitcoins, as I said, have become valuable. People are trading them for real money. So at the time, you could pay about $100 to get a bitcoin back and forth. And when the criminal organization that everyone thought was all anyone was doing with bitcoins, many people said, these bitcoins, yeah, the only reason people like them is you can buy marijuana. So when it was shut down, the value of the bitcoins dropped. It went down to about $75, I think, or $80. It dropped a fair bit for a few hours, and then it came back up. And I didn't see today, but yesterday I looked, it was $700. Because when people saw that the illegal activity did not kill it, when shutting off the illegal site didn't kill the Bitcoin, suddenly they realized, oh my God, people actually are doing real things with this. It took over. So now you have a money that cannot be controlled by any government. That governments cannot print it. All right? Now, we were making jokes about this earlier, but you have a serious problem with fiscal policy here in Argentina. You know it. The governments of countries like this will be afraid of a currency that they can't control, that can be moved. You won't have to get on a boat to Uruguay. Right? Wait a minute, someone here has done this? All right, the cameras noted who left about the boat to Uruguay. You won't have to. You can teleport your money instantly, anonymously through this. So you can expect the governments are scared. But I'm not sure Bitcoin will be the final answer, by the way. I predict that Bitcoin is maybe the grandfather of the final digital money. There are flaws in Bitcoin. This mining I told you about has got some controversial things. It takes a lot of electricity to make a Bitcoin. It's the energy of 21 gallons of gasoline to make a Bitcoin. When they were $80, that was okay. Now they're $700. Things are changing. It's designed, though, to get harder and harder as time goes on, so that Moore's Law does not shut down the system. There's also a fixed number of Bitcoins that can never be found, 22 million. Once 22 million have been found, there'll be no more. So instead of getting less valuable every year like some currencies, Bitcoins are actually going to have deflation, become more valuable if they're successful. But there are other flaws in Bitcoin where I think people will find a new digital money they like even better in a couple of years, and then again another one, and eventually the world will settle down, but there will be a digital money. Now that's a brief explanation of some of the issues behind Bitcoin. You actually asked something more specific that I've now forgotten after ranting for 10 minutes. Well, so the security is really cool because what the Bitcoin inventors, and this will make you even more afraid, the inventors of Bitcoin are themselves anonymous, or if it's a single person. They're all posted under a fake name, Satoshi Nakamoto. And so it pretends to be a Japanese guy, but most people think it's a group of cryptographers who got together and invented this thing because it's very well designed. And it seems to be pretty secure. There are occasionally little issues found. In particular, the fact that the transactions are public, even though the names are secret, means you can trace money flowing all sorts of ways, and it's quite often possible to figure out exactly who must be the owner of a certain piece of money because of how you've seen it flow. So the security isn't perfect. But the neat trick was they got all the people who were trying to mine the coins and spending all their computer time to mine the coins, and their computer time is also verifying all the other transactions, making that magic scroll happen. So as long as people are mining, and right now mining is very lucrative, as long as people are mining, they will be verifying and making sure no one can cheat. And Bitcoin solved an ancient problem. They called it the competing generals problem, and it was an idea that you had a lot of different people, all selfish, and you had to get them to cooperate on something, and it was hard to do that because they could cheat. And Bitcoin found a way to stop that from happening. So that's pretty cool. So let's move on to talk about privacy.